Sorry. Got to hit record, we're good. You want an update on that?
If you don't mind.
So we just received the revised plans yesterday for this. So what we're gonna do for October 10th is when the applicant's gonna come in, and just so we have time to review the material, which is in your packets. They'll present the changes that were made.
Okay,
They're significant ones. It's pretty significant redesign.
okay.
So with that, looking to continue that to the October 10th meeting.
I would entertain a motion. I would entertain a second.
Okay.
Any discussion?
Yeah, this discussion, is the 0 Maple Street?
Yes,
No discussion, sorry. We'll change that. Fine. No discussion.
Okay.
Remain.
Call for the vote.
yeah, got
Friday.
Bill O'Connell,
Bill, aye.
Steve,
that motion passes unanimously.
had me intrigued, Phil.
Keep going.
Okay.
The next item on the agenda is a public hearing for 57 Mendon Street. Can you bring us up to speed on that?
Sure, so 57 Mendon Street, if we go back quite a ways, a few months ago, when they first presented the material. There were some initial conversations about changes to the plan, getting more information for the stormwater report. Last month, the applicant did resubmit material, and we were waiting for the peer review to come back. The peer review did come back, but it came back yesterday. So we're not going to discuss the peer review tonight because you haven't had a chance to look at it. As I didn't even put it in your drop boxes because it was new yesterday. But I figured this would be a good time for the applicant to present the new material because there's been a pretty significant, I don't want to call it redesign, but a lot more material was submitted to the planning board and the peer reviewer than initially submitted. So I thought this would be a good time for the applicant and his representative to go over the plans for the board and for the neighbors.
The floor is yours, sir.
Continue, Phil Housing, land planning. You guys see that okay?
I think it's important for the audience to see it as well.
Okay.
I'm pulling up the share screen as well.
Yeah, so they can see it and they can see it.
Yeah, like Rob said, we got the peer review back yesterday, so we have not even really looked at it yet. The changes since we were here last is we've kind of changed our drainage scheme a bit, meaning we're gonna have two different areas of a product called True Grid, which is a plastic grid with stone underneath. So that's gonna work for bearing of cranes, for stabilizers, and also part of our drainage system. So it can detain water within the work area. So we got two areas like that. Up by the existing parking lot here by the office building and out back where we're gonna do some lines in the investment. The pond, open air pond still similar, and an underground infiltration area similar to what we discussed before. And we also are proposing is extending the earthen berm up by the 6 parking places, so that will prevent any water from going into the adjacent neighbors. Those are the changes.
Okay. I'd like to open up to questions for the board. But beforehand, how do we leave things last with the public? Weren't they supposed to make some changes?
Yeah, I
I'd
think.
like to get an update on those changes.
Yeah, I believe there were a couple areas that were of concern. One of them was this area here. Next to the dumpster and the storage container, which there was some areas that were leaking into the whites, which are here. And then the rear area, there's, I know, an existing outlet control structure for this existing pond, which I believe that was causing some water to go out to the Willie's property. Who are also here, I believe. So Those are the two areas that needs to be looked at. And in
Okay.
particular for the area behind here, the outlet control structure, since that was a, bigger scope, that's where we wanted the peer reviewer to make sure that if this gets redesigned, it's modeled correctly. So,
So have you addressed the concerns of the neighbors?
Think so. It
Okay,
was mostly water running from the upper parking area, which the earth and berm will take care of.
okay. What I'd like to do, usually we speak first, but because this has been outstanding, I'd like to ask the neighbors, based on what you've been told, and based on what you're going through, can you give us an update on how you think things are going?
Nothing has changed.
Okay,
That berm, the Cape Cod berm that was removed years ago. And at the last meeting, he said it was gonna be taken care of in a week. Nothing.
okay,
That was my point at the last meeting was, what can we do to put a temporary situation in here to keep the flooding? And that was the last time here as a group. You guys said you could do something within a week. It doesn't sound like anything happened. Is that fair?
Not at all.
Would you like to comment on it?
Yep, I sent my number one gardener out there. We loaded a new earthen berm and an entire bag of grass seed to seed it in the hopes that that would be abated.
So there was a height of ground that you took out and instead you put in grass seed.
No. We added
You added grass seed.
earth and then seeded it.
And I asked, how high did you build the earth up? Is it
As
a
high as it
fair
would-
question, right?
Yeah, no, it's a fair question. As high as it would go. What we have there is a trailer, so we built it right up to the lip of the trailer.
Okay, let me ask a follow-up question. So there was something there before. How high was that?
No, there was nothing there before.
So we were here the last time, talked about the fact that you guys took out something that was right in the front there. And now there was nothing that you guys took out previous, like in the last couple of years.
Oh, no, there was nothing there before. No. There was never anything there. That was flat ground.
Where the water was coming into the neighbors out the front.
That was just flat ground.
Anybody have a different memory?
I feel like this has changed a little bit. When I left the last meeting, and I think we all did, thinking that at one time there was a Cape Cod berm.
There
And then
was,
that,
it was going in a different direction. It was going north to south up the edge of where the pavement ends. And that did in fact get knocked off when we were plowing, so it got knocked off.
So that was my question, was how high was that berm before it got taken out?
Maybe 3 or 4 inches.
3 or 4 inches, and how high did you rebuild this one?
This berm is in a different place. This is actually going across east to west, which would prevent water from going into the neighbor's yard. That's our goal.
Is there any chance that there's pictures that exist that could be shown tonight?
No, no, I didn't expect it was gonna come up again.
so for clarification, Jay, are you on here? I don't know if you can see my cursor. But was there a berm going across where my cursor is? Here?
I don't see your cursor.
You're saying in a different direction. I know your proposed plans show it, the new Cape Cod berm here. But was there one going this way at one point? Is that
It
where-
was, but out to the dirt's edge.
Those pocket spots up.
Right.
Here,
Into the
Yes.
parking, yeah.
Exactly,
there,
right.
and then. But where your water's coming into your property, Mike and Andrea, it's coming in this way, correct?
Yeah, but not from there. It's coming in on the dirt side. I can see
Over here.
where it's cleared, so we backfilled in there as high as we could.
I know when I walked out there, you were preparing that area for something, but is that a fair assumption, though, that water's coming in over here to get
Oh, it
into
has
this
to be.
property? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
What I'd like to do is get some more comments from the neighbors. Yes, ma'am. Just state your name and address.
Andrea White from 84 Rose Ave. Our property is the one we're talking about with the water runoff. There was an asphalt Cape Cod berm across where those parking spots where Mr. Lucio was just pointing to. And it came down and it wrapped around. And that was taken out almost immediately when Mr. Stern took ownership of the property. Because he drives his trucks onto the working and testing area, and that right there. So I don't see how it can be replaced if he's still using that to drive his trucks on for working. But that's what was there, was an asphalt concrete, or, an asphalt Cape Cod berm that went all along that edge and then wrapped around behind our property, which
Is it-
kept the water flowing.
A fair representation is said. That number one, it's no longer there,
Right,
and number two, it has not been replaced.
no.
Okay. Residents in the back and with your water.
Charles Woodley, 68 Rose Ave. We haven't had any rain, so we haven't had any water issues.
Okay,
And I see the drawings here. And this is exactly what we have. We have pictures of all of this. This is just, and that's the property line there. When there is, I don't know how this is all set up here. I don't claim to be, water management of any kind.
that's fine, sir.
But I know that, and I can show you, I have a couple of quick pictures if you guys want to see them, or, you can look at them. But when we get a lot of rain, that the stones that are here that they have pictured right here, the water pours out of there and right onto my property.
Okay. Still to this day.
Yes, well, but like I said, we haven't had enough rain in
Okay.
a while now to have it be an issue.
And that outlet pipe, I don't think anything's changed or would change. I mean, I'd want it engineered before anything gets touched with that outlet
Correct.
pipe. So that one's a little bit bigger,
So
long-term issue if this gets approved.
it appears that the ongoing problem that this board has a concern with still exists.
Correct.
And we were told it would be rectified at our last meeting.
Well, my understanding was this area would be looked at, which is where that earthen berm is
Okay.
now. But that was my understanding, because long term, when we're talking about the actual drainage structures, especially in this back area, we want to make sure that the basin and that infiltration system is designed correctly.
What's your, I know you have some concerns.
Yeah, so I'm concerned if we get a lot of rain, that we're gonna have an issue. And I'm concerned that what's there in the temporary situation that you guys worked on isn't gonna be substantial enough until we get this thing completed. As an expert in water management, what's your thoughts?
Well, certainly nothing is gonna change until it's constructed.
Even a temporary situation that we talked about the last time?
Well, the temporary thing, which I think Jay alluded to what he was doing, was that earthen berm that we want in that green area, is that stops the water from going north. Right through here. So any water that comes here is already an earthen berm there. We'll take the water and focus it to the existing drainage area.
And
So I think he should be able to do that before.
and you think that that's gonna be substantial enough that it's not gonna flood the neighbors?
We'll stop the water going into the White's property.
As it is now, as today?
I have not seen what Jay has done, so I can't answer that. I don't know how high he put the earth in there.
Okay. Here's my problem, you know. Sample size. We have neighbors who have a water problem. We have some work that has been done to it. We don't know if it's satisfactory. We don't know how high the berms are. The engineer hasn't been there. We don't have pictures. And we still have concerns with water in the residence areas. Have I missed anything?
Asking me,
What?
sorry, was that a question directed to me?
Well, first to the neighbors and to you.
Okay.
How do we strategically get this done to solve the short-term problem? And also keep in mind our long-term goal.
Well, I think the short-term problem that can be fixed, I believe, is this area here, which it sounds like there was a berm that was installed, but it sounds like there still might be some runoff issues in that area, even with the temporary berm. Yes,
Hasn't rained, so.
good point. So it might,
The storage trailers in that area, I don't know that anything has been, I would think they would have to be moved in order to build up the land in that spot. But that's, I don't know.
yeah, and did you,
Is it worth? If we're looking for a continuance, how far into the future are we looking for that continuance?
well, we just got the peer review back. They're gonna need time to submit plan just to respond to the peer review, which I think this is good that from the design perspective of the stormwater management system for the site, we're moving forward. We're not, we'll hold off on the talk about the short-term solution here for a minute, but you know, I think a month you probably would need to,
Yeah, some of those items are somewhat time consuming.
okay,
And my drainage guy working on this, he's away, we'll have next month.
okay.
So I was looking at getting on the meeting, perhaps a second meeting in November, but then I looked at the calendar.
We only have one.
Yeah, right.
So we could be looking at the first meeting in
Yeah.
December. Realistically.
Yeah, because we need to address the comments, get them out to the peer and get a response back.
I feel like we talked about this other issue, the short-term thing. I was hoping you were gonna say you were gonna be ready next meeting.
Yeah,
Well,
well, if we would get the comments a month ago, yes,
Um,
we got them today.
so I'm hearing that we haven't had rain at this point, so we haven't had a situation to test what's there. I guess I'd be interested in hearing the rest of the board to see whether or not it's worth maybe sending Rob out to take a quick look. Whether it's, if this is not an issue and there's been some time taken care of, then that's fine.
Yeah, and I
Who's the
was,
ex-
yeah, I was out there once when there was work getting done in that area, but obviously there was not a finished product. I'll take a look, because the other thing too, Mike and Andrea, to your point with the trailers, if there is some way for the water to get underneath them, I think it's a simple solution to just make sure that that's burned up front. It might already be, but, yeah, I'll take a look. That's simple enough. Do that next week. Easy. And then I'd like to proceed. I think they're making progress with the whole drainage system with the basins and the underground infiltration system. The peer review, I looked at it briefly and I think it came back pretty good. There's a couple things like with modeling to make sure that pre-development was modeled correctly. But overall, it was a thorough review, but definitely just some tweaks that need to be made. So, and then that'll be helpful for the other situation with the outlet control structure for that basin getting designed properly,
Correct.
make sure it's working effectively.
Okay, so I'm hearing that you'd be willing to go out there.
Yes.
You guys out there, look at it. If what's there is good, then that's good, but do you think we need to discuss it before the next peer review? And I guess that's a question. The peer review gets finished up. We're talking November, and I think if if there is an issue, you know, is November's kind of a long way away. I guess I'm asking the question, Robin.
It is, and I
Do you have the
can,
mechanisms to?
yeah, because I can work with Jay and Bill to come up with a solution before then, so. If there is a problem, but if the berm is installed and there's no water going underneath there, just for the time being until. If these improvements get,
Yeah,
Yeah.
the engineers, you know, you guys are working on this, and we appreciate you working on it. There's not a problem, it's not a problem, but it sounds like there's some question here and without pictures and without everything else. Can I ask the question if you guys want to work with Rob, if you guys come to the conclusion that there's an issue there, that we can make some temporary fixes instead of having you guys come all the way back here sooner than November? If, I'm asking if you guys will work with Rob, and if you guys are gonna work with Rob, then
I'm happy to work with Rod.
Yeah, I think we can solve
Okay.
this behind the scenes.
that's.
yeah, the short term and long term, I mean, they're looking at, on the plans, you can see that bituminous curb is gonna be reestablished.
Okay,
So that's part of the design plan.
I'm assuming that was in the old plans to old modeling and et cetera.
I don't think that was in the proposed design initially. This is part of that, adding more detail and redesigning and.
Make it more complete.
Correct.
Okay.
I think that's.
Making it more
accurate.
complete and making sure that we don't flood the neighbors and.
Correct.
Okay.
So
I guess let's hear the rest of the board.
Liz,
I have no comments. It sounds like you guys have been kind of working on this for a while.
We
so,
have.
Yeah, I have no comments. Thank you.
I would feel better if Rob, could put some eyes on it. Every time that you're on our agenda, unfortunately, we have concerns from the neighbors, so if we can put eyes on it just to confirm that they're not, gonna get water if this hurricane makes its way up here. I think I'd feel better about that.
Don't say that word.
Jinx.
Don't do it.
No, I concur with Nick in that, the best thing we can do is schedule this for the earliest possible date, so the engineering can get completed and we can move on.
This was before my time.
okay, but feel free to speak up.
Yeah, no, I think I agree with everything that's been said, so.
Okay,
Let's work with this.
I think we're all in agreement. So with that in mind,
It's a question from the crowd.
No.
yes, ma'am,
I apologize again for the silly questions, but
there's no such thing as a silly question.
can someone just say again in really basic dumbed down terms, this remodeled plan? What does that change? Because again, we last 3 meetings, going back months, it was just going to be a reconfiguration and expanding the parking lot, fixing the water issues. Can you just explain in layman's, like, what does this mean, this change? What does that mean? Because work area is a totally different, ball game, and
I will leave that up
I
to you.
apologize for the
No need to
dumb
apologize.
question, but I'm gonna just throw it out there while I'm sitting here.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Bill, do you want to take it since you've got the design?
What the changes on the design is, it'll slow down the water going out. That's the main theme of it.
To add to that, so basically, on that plan where you see, I think is that pink that it's colored?
Yeah, pink is.
Those-
great.
Those are the work areas, which are current work areas, at least from when I went out there was equipment in those areas, but right now it's gravel. So what they're trying to propose are some impermeable or permeable pavers, so it's basically just allows water infiltration, it's not pavement. So they can put equipment over there to do whatever it is that Cranes 101 does. That's the work area. So pretty much putting down pavers where there's already existing work areas now. From the stormwater perspective, the green that's colored in is actually, there's an existing basin in the back of the property that's getting expanded slightly towards the Jay's property. And then that orange or brown color, I can't really tell from here, is an additional underground basin that will allow more capacity for stormwater to get stored and then eventually during really large storm events can discharge out through an outlet control structure. That's the long and short of it, if that makes sense.
So does any of that work change we are not taking down trees, we are not disrupting the land, we are not disrupting the area? Does that change any of that
No,
statement?
correct, because yes, the areas that are already cleared that's the limits of their work. So where that orangish brown colored system is, the underground one, there's a basin that's there that's cleared. It's right now just scrubby brush. That's the only limits of any clearing that's gonna happen, but there's no trees in there. Where the pond is, I guess I'll just stand up. This basin, the limits of the basin are here, the existing ones. This is all remaining the same, so I don't think there's any trees in this area. When I went out.
The small ones.
Yeah, so those are all gonna remain. There's no trees that are gonna be taken down. I believe you're now adding a fence, correct? Along
Yeah.
this property line and the
If
back.
we ever do this project, we're gonna add a fence, yes.
If they ever do this project, they're gonna add a fence. So, and then this area here, there's gonna be no additional changes to any vegetation on that property line that's proposed.
While you're there,
Yeah,
I'm assuming that the outlet thing where the stones are far to the left.
Yep.
That's an overflow tank or an overflow outlet or something like that?
yeah, so those are designed for like, usually if it's a 25-year or 100-year storm, water can.
Okay, so that is gonna stay there?
Right now, that's proposed.
That's what's supposed to stay there, okay.
Correct,
Okay.
but I
As
have
long
to-
as long as it's gonna take care of the problem, I really don't care if it's there,
Yep.
but. I mean, some of the times I've seen water flowing out of that thing, it is just pouring out of there.
yeah,
You know?
no, I hear you.
I just wanna make sure that's addressed.
Yeah,
When this gets put through, I just wanna make sure that that's addressed.
and the peer reviewer is taking a look at that to make sure that it's been designed properly.
Okay.
So that will be in there. And when I have a chance to review the peer review in more detail, because it just came in yesterday, I can even speak to some of the comments that were brought up, if any, for that output. Oh, Bill, I'm doing your job for you.
You just want more words.
That was clear, thank you. And my last statement, because everyone seems to ask this, the unregistered vehicle issue, is that something that will eventually be addressed?
I know that was mentioned during the last meeting, which I did talk to our zoning enforcement.
That's zoning, that's not.
It is, but yeah, I'm not even, I apologize. I'm not prepared to discuss it tonight, but I will definitely get clarification on that.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
And Rob, you have a copy of the Dover amendment?
I do. I recall that there was, because this has to do with education, I believe.
Yep.
Yeah, so, but I'll get clarification on it. All right.
For the audience, could you just clarify the role of the peer reviewer
Yeah, so the.
and who pays for it?
Yeah, so the peer reviewer is a third-party engineer. The applicant pays for it, but essentially it's to look at the project, not from the town's perspective or the applicant's perspective, but a third-party perspective to make sure that all the regulations are met. So we've hired CMG to do that work.
Is CMG been advised of the water issues that are there?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yep.
Okay.
Yep, no, they've been in tune. I went over the issues that were mentioned at the previous hearing.
And we will have them in at some point in time.
Yep,
So, what's the best date for a continuance?
well, I think you're saying December 12th, correct? Which I'm fine with that. We can work through just making sure that these other tweaks, the minor ones are taken care of, the
Okay.
short-term ones, well before December 12th.
Okay,
But that'll give you ample time to get material back to the peer reviewer and the peer reviewer to
Yeah.
basically review it again.
And we may want to have a conversation with you and the peer reviewer too along the line to
Yep.
make sure we're all on the same page.
Yeah, I think that would make sense.
Yeah.
So we can do that. So if we continue to December 12th, the one thing, so our deadline for a decision is October 25th, so that needs to be extended. The one thing about that, I like to usually get the extension at least a meeting past the continuance. We haven't set our meeting dates for 2025 yet, so for this, I would just recommend doing an extension to December 13th. And then that way,
okay.
Or what about just January 31st? And then whatever dates in January.
Well, I think a compromise could be December 31st.
well, we could do January 31st, just to
Okay.
make sure that we have a meet, that's a good idea, just to make sure, because we'll have a
There's a meeting in
meeting.
January, so.
Yeah, good thinking. All right,
We'll need a motion for that. So, we're gonna need two motions. We need a motion for continuance for the first meeting in December.
second.
I have a motion has been made and seconded to continue this to our first and only meeting in December. Any further discussion?
The one below is the old.
Call for the vote.
Nick, I.
Brian, I.
Bill, aye.
Bill, I.
Steve, I.
That motion passes unanimously. Now, I'm gonna need a motion to extend the deadline decision to January 31st. It's the first time we'll be saying this, 2025.
Thank you.
So move it.
Second, Nick.
Any discussion? Call for the vote.
Nick, I.
Brian, I.
Bill, aye.
Bill, I.
Steve, I.
So that motion passes unanimously. So this will be heard again the second Thursday in December. I would encourage you to come and listen. By then, we'll have answers on the short-term situation and begin to address the long-term concerns. I think we were able to address most of your questions tonight. You've heard we're gonna add capacity to the system. So, yeah, I think the goal is to get everything, so to speak, hunky-dory as we move forward.
We are not, they are adding
Okay.
capacity to their system.
Okay. Anything else? Approval of minutes?
Yeah, I would just say too, to, residents, feel free to reach out to me, so if there's any questions or concerns that come up.
Stay involved.
Yeah.
Please. I think, you know,
Bill and
yeah,
Jay, appreciate your
we're here to listen to you.
working with us.
This will need to be talking.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
The snow melt, right, yeah, and then the rain. And
All right.
Do we all have a chance to review the minutes on September 12th? Have any comments? Jake, y'all?
Thank you. Have a good
Good
night.
night, thank you.
Next time.
Want to thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
See ya.
We appreciate it. I would entertain a motion to accept the minutes of September 12th. I will second.
Second.
But I think
Good
this is-
idea.
this is-
Any discussion? All in favor?
Nick, I.
Brian, I.
Still on?
Bill, I.
The motion passes unanimously. Anything I've missed, Rob?
Yeah, there's a couple items in here. So let's see. So first of all, I already mentioned that you guys have
No, they're leaving.
in your packets.
They're-
This is the peer review that we were just discussing,
Mhm.
57 Mendon Street, if you're aware of it, and the 0 Maple Street. So that's for stuff to review later. The other things in your packet, it was actually on our agenda for the vote of the planning board to submit the MBTA 3A warrant article to the select board. So good news, as of, what was the vote, 5:45 this evening? The subcommittee for the MBTA zoning has made a motion to send this to you guys, recommend this to you guys. to be on the fall town meeting warrant, which is excellent news. Now, I had this on this agenda, but obviously I don't want to have you guys just vote to send this without reviewing it. So what I would like to do, it's in your packets. I think most of you are aware of the information in here, but I can go over it a little bit too. But I would love for you guys to have a chance to review this, and then if we could, if anyone is available for a special meeting next week, it'll be a 2-item agenda, this article, and then I'll go over the other one next, but just to send these to the select board. And then what will happen is the select board will then vote to send the articles back to planning board, and we will have a public hearing for it. So those would be scheduled for October 24th, so the second meeting in October. And the plan is for the October 24th meeting to have just these articles on the agenda for that. So that was the update, a little long-winded, but that's the MBTA Communities Overlay District. The language is in your packets. This is the final language that was recommended, and then also we have fancy, pretty GIS maps too, to show you the parcels that are part of this. So
You're the only one that can say they're fancy.
they came out good, I have to say. Yeah, I give credit to our GIS department. David Ainer is our GIS analyst. He's very good. He did a good job.
I have a question about that meeting.
Sure.
Can it be a Zoom meeting or in person?
It can be Zoom. We have that option. I would probably do a hybrid model, so
Okay.
if people can come in, that would be good, but I'll gladly Zoom people in too.
You would like that done next week?
Correct. So the reason why, and I do apologize for doing this because I know the thought probably will be, oh, just do it at the October 10th meeting. There are some deadlines that I want to meet in order to give us ample time, and we're not scrambling right at the 11th hour for town meeting. And it would work best if this was in front of the select board for their October 7th meeting, which is a week from Monday, which is why I would love to get this to them or recommended or sent to them via the motion from the planning board for that October 7th meeting. So it has to be before then.
Unfortunately, I cannot do Thursday the 3rd. I'm available on the 2nd. What's everyone's schedule?
The only day I cannot do, just because of meeting conflicts, is the 1st.
Okay, yep, that's the veterans housing one. That's at 7, correct?
7 o'clock in the conference room, yeah.
Okay.
Can we do what, does Wednesday look viable for people?
I don't know if I can do Wednesday.
Any day works for me, so.
Okay, gotcha. And we don't need everybody, we just need a quorum.
I can't do Wednesday.
Wednesday's,
now?
Wednesday's tough for me too. but
Okay,
I could-
what was that?
I could work around later.
Is Monday an option?
Monday is an option. There's no
No.
meetings Monday.
Did you know, do we have to notice this or no?
No, it would just be a public hearing, a public meeting to do this. We have to notice the public hearing, which will be on the 24th. So this is just an agenda item.
Alright, so we don't have to give notice, right?
Nope, we just
Are
have
we-
to post.
Are we doing this as well for the energy overlay?
Correct,
So we,
That was-
we'd also discuss that then?
correct.
Okay.
Yeah,
Can we get creative with the start time?
yeah, we
Make
can.
it work?
Yeah, I mean, it's whatever time works best with everybody's schedule.
5:30 on Tuesday?
I would not be able to get here. I wouldn't be able to get here till 6:30.
Okay,
I would have to zoom in.
Monday and Tuesday for me, it would have to be after 6:30. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday can be literally any time. But that's just my schedule.
Tuesday at 6:30 work.
I mean, I-
Yeah, I can.
Is there any-
We could pull that off, Rob.
Okay.
I mean, do I need to be here? I mean, I won't be here. I'll.
You
send
don't,
you.
you don't have to be. No, you don't.
I mean, I can probably call in.
Yeah, if you want to call in or zoom in, it's completely up to you.
Okay.
You don't have to
I can
be
do that.
here. Because actually, the associate can't make a motion on this anyway, but. Hey,
The
I
chair-
was told that for 3 years, okay?
Me too.
That's right.
I've spent
That's why
enough,
I'm
I've spent
chuckling.
enough time with it. I don't need to make a
That's why I'm
motion
chuckling.
on it.
That's
But
right.
that's
Liz.
fine. I can either call in or I'm sure you guys can handle it.
Rob, you foresee it lasting more than 30 minutes?
No, I can keep it very short and sweet.
And the language is kind of already established by.
Correct.
It's not a substantive hearing, it's just a vote to send it so it comes back for the substantive hearing.
Exactly. That's all it is. To be honest, I thought about doing it tonight, but the issue is that this does get reviewed by the Attorney General, and talking to town council, it was questionable. If they review the timelines of when it was recommended by your subcommittee, when it was sent from the planning board to the select board, and when select board sends it back, and planning board has the public hearings, and we agree that it might be a little bit questionable from the Attorney General, where they say, well, it was sent to the planning or recommended to the planning board the same night it was sent to the select board, like, was it?
One, you'd have enough time.
2 hours later.
Yeah, so,
And I will say about the language, a lot, and Rob can attest to this, is that from the consultant and from town council, like a lot, most of the language has to be in there. There wasn't a lot of wiggle room in terms of what we could actually write and exclude, right, Rob?
correct.
So just keep that in mind when you're reviewing it. It's not boilerplate, but there are very specific requirements to be in compliance.
I remember hearing, I asked the question to your.
Oh,
consultant.
yeah, you were there.
Yeah.
Yes, you were there.
And I got that nice little. Nope,
Yeah.
nope.
But Rob, at the public hearing, Judy or Sarah will be on Zoom, right?
Yeah, and I guess to that point, I guess I can even add to it, because Phil, you brought up a very, very valid point. I think it's what most people are concerned about as far as how this language is written, not this language, but just how the regulations are written. And Phil, if I recall, your question was, if the planning board deems that it would make sense to have offsite mitigation of some sorts, where's our leverage for that? And our consultant essentially stated that, well, there is no leverage. It's not the way this is written. You can't just ask for offsite mitigation unless there is some absolute dire need for it. But even then, it's very difficult to make that case. And that's pretty much where it was left off, correct? Correct me if I'm
Yeah,
wrong.
and I even asked, I started with even more of a general thing is what, what lever, I use the word levers, but, what discretion does the town have?
Correct.
And the answer was basically none.
No, it's a by right. It's a by right development, so there's very limited.
There were like things like, we request that the, before construction starts, that they come in and talk to you. I don't see that in here. I'm like,
Oh, the,
They
pre-application,
may
yeah.
come in and talk to you. I'm like,
That's how most of the regulations are written, though, like even for our preliminary subdivision plans, like it's stated in there that it is highly recommended that the applicant and developer meet with the
yeah,
planning department and,
and I wasn't sure about the, I don't want to get in a full discussion, but
no, I get that.
No, but,
we can talk later.
this actually brings up a good, Rob, maybe we can have this in our back pocket. I know the first couple of developments in different municipalities under the overlay district are in front of boards at the moment.
Mhm,
Like, I think there's a multifamily development in Lexington, and then I just read about another one.
correct.
Happy to ask my contacts, like how that's been going or what's been going on with that. Maybe that would be helpful for us as background information. But,
Yeah.
doesn't affect when you guys have the meeting next week,
Nope.
so,
Yeah.
I think we just want to get to that meeting next week.
so we can move
And then
move
move
the
on.
process along.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then we'll develop our game plan.
I have another thing at 7. But is it gonna?
We
be-
have another thing at 7.
And I think we'd be up against maybe, what do you have? A town?
No, Friends of Music.
Because I think the Board of Health might be in here at 7.
They might,
I think that's that, because we're downstairs because somebody's in here
yeah,
at 7.
well, we can, I feel very confident that I can get through this stuff in half an hour, no problem whatsoever. So. I think we want to limit it to half an hour, to be honest.
'Cause the big discussion will happen at the public hearing.
Yeah.
Correct,
Yeah.
correct.
This is just honestly a procedural process.
It is a procedural process.
But I want to make sure we all have a chance to read everything before we move it forward.
Yeah,
So it'll also be about this energy resource.
Correct.
correct, which,
2-item
That's
agenda.
only two.
yeah, and I can go over this energy resource overlay tonight. That was the next thing, because I know that this is the first time, unlike the MBTA, that's been discussed at great length going back almost 2 years ago now, where there's been snippets. I think I showed you guys the parcels before this was even proposed, like at the time, but, the energy resource overlay, you might not be as aware with.
Oh, wait here, you want to give us a
Yeah, let me
quick
give you,
overview?
let me give you a quick overview. So this energy resource overlay, this has to do with the proposed battery storage facility that the town has basically initiated a host community agreement with. I was at the select board meeting, I think it was last month. I don't know, is everybody there for that?
Zoom in.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
listened to it on later.
Okay, I think it was beginning of last month, if it was the beginning of August, but went over the details of it, and there was a really good presentation. I recommend it to take a look at that Zoom meeting, or the recording if you haven't, because there was a really, really in-depth presentation of that facility, but the battery energy storage is not an allowed use at all in our zoning regulations. It's not even listed, so rather than put it in the use table, I talked to town council and Dennis, and it just made sense to create an overlay over the two parcels that this energy storage facility will be on. So I'll pull it up really quickly on Mass Map, or the location, just so you can see it, but it's right on the Medway border. A part of the facility is actually in Medway. I think that's currently being constructed as phase 1, we're phase 2. So it'll actually be nice, you'll get to see what it looks like, before it even starts getting constructed in Bellingham. Just give me 1 second. Anyway, so the language itself, the way that I wrote that, it's actually based off of our solar voltaic, or large-scale solar voltaic field bylaw, where those regulations, it's pretty much a requirement for a special permit, as well as really enforcing conversations with public safety to make sure that any of the electrical equipment is first vetted properly with the design, making sure that it's accessible during emergency situations, and that the equipment is reviewed to make sure it's of the correct quality. This overlay is essentially the same situation where if people go through and want to submit an application to the planning board, they're gonna have to go through a special permit process, which there is criteria in here regarding that. I did add design standards, as well, which are specific to this overlay regarding lighting, signage, accessory structures, the dimensional and density requirements, and then also land clearing. But the biggest thing is really, it's the section with safety and environmental concerns, because that is where there needs to be a full submission to the fire chief for review for the electrical plans, the fire suppression plans. And really, they need to have some type of summary or some type of design of a plan if there is an emergency. During the presentation at the select board, I would say probably the main concern or the main questions were safety related, because there have been, when these battery storage facilities were first popping up years ago, there's been instances where there's been some issues with these. Since then, there's been a lot of changes. I know the fire chief has actually was there to discuss, and he was actually very supportive of this project. And the developer also spoke to it as well, as far as these systems are pretty much self-contained with suppression systems, because they're essentially Connex boxes with batteries in them to store electric from the grid. So that way it can discharge during peak events. So with that, any design that's inside those Connex boxes, it needs to be reviewed and signed off by the fire chief. I'm ranting. Let me show you where it is too, and then I will stop talking. If you have questions, I can go a little bit deeper into the regs, but that's the long and short of what's proposed.
And I know that these have been controversial in other communities.
That is correct.
Because of the potential of the perceived danger, whether or not they're actual dangers, but the perceived.
And they addressed that at the meeting.
They did.
To a great degree.
They did. They probably went on it was a really good presentation.
It was excellent.
Yeah. So these are the two parcels, if you look at the screen. So this one, this parcel, and this parcel, these are the two parcels that are being used for this. And just to understand where that is, this is Farm Street, where my cursor is, and this is the intersection of Farm Street and Hartford Ave. So this is tucked in the back. This is the Medway Bellingham line. And this is West Street. So basically, over here, this is where that existing energy grid, whatever, it's some type of power substation in here in Medway, that's where that's located. The battery storage facility is supposed to go, I believe it's this parcel, I forget what other parcels in Medway, but this is where it connects into Bellingham, is these two here. These are where our battery storage facilities would be located. And the good thing is I know my initial concern as soon as this was brought up was, all right, where are the residential neighbors and what is this land currently? Because if it's all wooded and there's houses right nearby, it's just gonna add a lot of questions and concerns during this process, which I don't know if we necessarily would like to have more contentious projects if we really have to. So the good thing is, if I go to the aerial imagery, the limits that you see here of the clearing, that is the limits of where they want this battery storage facility to be. So these are high power lines. This is the easement. And on the other side is this big clearing where it's, I think it was used as a quarry at one point. That's why you see all these stones. And then there's, I think this is another easement. That might be a gas easement that runs along this. But that's pretty much where they're proposing this battery storage.
Isn't there an odd street that goes in through there?
There is this street here, which I didn't even know existed. I believe it's called Old Stone Road.
Yep, that rings a bell.
Stone Street, not this, Stone Street is this one. This is Stone Street here, and this is Old Log Lane here. So. But that is where the facility will be located.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, do you tell me, was there one neighbor who was sold to the developer?
There might have been a few, there's definitely a few parcels that were acquired by the developer that were nearby, like houses, but I can't really speak to it.
Okay,
Because I don't know which ones, but. Yeah, that's pretty much it. One other, I think, really big part of this too is, one thing that we've discussed at great length with any solar project is the decommissioning surety. That is in here as well, so.
Says 125% of the cost. Do we have a order of magnitude on what the cost of it would be? I'd love to know what 125% is gonna be. I mean, is this, I mean, what type of, are we talking $20 million? We talking, or
It very well could be.
I guess we need to ask that question at some point.
Yeah, I mean, the developer will be here during the public hearing process.
that just sets the amount of the surety.
Yeah, and I guess I'm asking a question because that kind of defines how big of a project this really is.
It's a pretty big project.
Yeah,
Granted, when you drive down Hartford Avenue, you can already see, I believe, the facilities that are sitting over in Medway. So I would say that there, you know, there's already stuff in that area already. But yeah, that's why I was kind of questioning the 125% of the cost of the project to see what, you know, what type of true dollars we're talking. How big a facility this really is and what, you know, and then questions for later is, you know,
I think
what
that's a
type
good
of
start.
revenues coming in.
That's a good starting point.
so
Yeah,
that's not 125% of the cost of the project. It's 125% of the cost of removal.
of removal.
And that's,
Okay.
and that's the reason why it's 125% is because depending on the the life of the project, there's an inflation calculation, because obviously if it's a 25-year lifespan, the dollar amount, the dollar amount now is not going to translate to the dollar amount in 25 years. So that's where this came into play. And that number came from our regulations for our solar field projects.
Thanks for clarifying that. I see that.
Oh, yeah, no problem. Yeah, that would,
Cost of removal and compliance.
that would be substantial if it was the
and
cost of the
compliance
project.
with the additional requirements set forth herein.
And I would think there would have to be some consideration for environmental remediation
Yeah.
because of the chemicals that are used in that process. If there's a spill, they
Mhm.
file for bankruptcy. The town is stuck remediating environmental
And that's why that
deal.
that financial surety for decommissioning is critical, I think, and that is covered in here, so. Which is good.
I think it's a great start,
I
because we don't want to leave the town exposed.
Great start. It's a great,
Well, you know,
it's great.
I
Just
think,
say it's great.
I think this is a bigger deal to the town than the MBTA. The consequence of this decision. Because of these places have to really kind of, they can't go everywhere because nobody really wants them. And there's premiums to be had. And we have to be very sure that, and I know that behind the scenes, a lot of work has gone into fleshing these things out, but this, I think, is much more of a, do we as a town want these kinds of things, right? Because we already have two power plants and all of those other things that go along with that. Is that worth the deal? You know what I mean? And that's gonna be a big discussion, I think, at town meeting, to the extent anybody starts to think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a big one.
Yeah.
Has the host agreement been signed at this point? You know,
I think it has, but I can't confirm that.
At some point during this process, the host agreement ought to be front and forward as a part of the carrot that's involved. I mean, I know it's the select board that signs those, but pluses and minuses. on
I
both
think that will
sides.
come out at the presentation.
Yeah, I
I think our job right now is to review it and make a recommendation to it for the select board, who brings it back to us. We then have a public hearing, and that's where it's vetted out.
correct.
For the first time, second time will be at the town floor meeting.
And this is going in November to the warrant.
Correct.
I'm just curious, if this is a formality in which we forward it to the select board, under what conditions would we say we weren't going to forward it?
What, well, if the board doesn't feel comfortable with the language, then yeah, you have every right to say, I don't feel comfortable forwarding this information.
I'm just curious.
Yeah, no, absolutely. As your professional staff, I would ask if there's something in there that you would like changed to make you feel comfortable, I would request what that would be. Or, but you know, even if you say, I'm not, I just don't think this is a good fit, I mean, that's your opinion too, but. Anyway, yeah, but
But
I
don't
want,
forget, we're just forwarding it. When it comes back to us, we have a chance again to recommend or not recommend.
correct, and
So we have, we have two shots at it. Technically.
yeah,
And I think, I think maybe the marijuana issue might have been one that might not have been supported by the board at one point in time. But other than that, it's been fairly simple and straightforward.
Is it literally dead if we don't submit it to the selectmen? It's dead?
this project,
Not this project, but this. The
yeah,
process
it's
stops.
correct, I think the only way it would change would be if, I think the select board can endorse this and just send it to us, but typically with zoning changes, it just makes sense to have the planning board approve, not approve, but initiate and endorse the decision to send it to the select board.
Who's the petitioner?
It would be the town of Bellingham.
Through the planning board would be the petitioner?
Or it might be the select board, I'd have to take a look. So I can figure that out. That's a good, I think it would be the planning board, but it would have to be, because we're sending it to the select board. I'm just
So
complicating
this is our proposal to them, from them?
Correct.
Okay, and what, we haven't been part of the process up until now?
You
But it's-
what?
We haven't been part of this discussion or process,
Until now,
and it's coming from us?
I suppose so, yeah. Yeah.
It's an interesting dilemma.
Yeah, no, I get that. Now,
And a
the,
75% vote at town meeting.
um,
Overlay, being a, is
No,
it? I'm asking,
it may
No,
be 50.
I think it's,
it's an
I think
overlay
it's-
district.
yeah, I don't know, to be honest with you.
I gotta find that out.
Yeah,
Where the ones putting forward? Okay. I didn't realize we were the people putting this forward. I mean, I don't know anything about this at all.
okay, fair enough then.
We have until next Monday to make next Tuesday to,
Next Tuesday, correct.
all right.
Well, this is the other thing that I can do too. MBTA, we've got that is drop dead deadline, we gotta get that in. Energy Resource Overlay District, this one was more of a want to see if we could get it for the fall town meeting. I completely understand your standpoint, and to be honest with you, it's a complete oversight by myself, because typically with zone changes and stuff, I know I mean, at least when I was on the board, there hasn't been a whole lot of discussion with them, but I can understand this is a bit.
This is like potential dynamite, right? We don't.
I-
This is a big decision for the town.
Okay, fair enough. So
Um,
if you're uncomfortable with it, then, I mean, listen, I get it.
Yeah.
So,
But that can be discussed.
yeah, we
The
can,
important thing is, I would like to get, although it's not me, I think this board should move the MBTA onto the select board.
yeah, Tuesday, definitely MBTA, but this
We
one,
can discuss this next Tuesday night,
yeah, I think that's,
but I don't think right now is the time, until we've fully read it, to go down a rabbit hole and start to express our opinions until we fully read it.
yeah, that's,
I don't want something to say to come back, to say, well, this is what you meant, this is what you said. I think we hold off our discussion until Tuesday night at 6:30.
that's fair.
Let me just ask this, I mean, if we're going to advance this, it would be prudent, I would assume, that everyone should review that presentation. Right?
Yeah, I would definitely say.
You know,
so.
because to advance this without seeing the presentation that was put forward, I think would be a little premature.
I thought the presentation was very well done.
Yeah, it had a lot of information.
Yeah, I saw it, but I just say if any one of us that comments on this should actually watch that if they haven't.
One last thought from me before. Has town council looked at this one yet?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
They're, favorite language.
So I will say that we as a town we should be looking at these new types of uses. Obviously, I wasn't really involved in any of the timing, so I don't know what was involved with it, but obviously Rob put together good regulations and town council has approved it, so, but we don't want to miss the boat on new types of uses and potentially. And this is something that I think is coming pretty quickly. A lot of municipalities are being able to take advantage of the fact that there's demand from this kind of use as opposed to other types of uses like office, lab, all those kinds of things. So if we don't examine the regulation and try to address it, if we want that type of use in town, it could, we could miss out on some of the current growth and demand.
Yeah, and I don't disagree at all with.
No, but I'm just laying it out there.
Yeah, I don't disagree with it at all, but if you're asking me to suddenly have an opinion on something which I think is a significant decision more than any other marijuana or any other thing, that, this is kind of like placing another, not the same, a use like a power plant in town.
This is where I think,
It's a bigger policy decision, so it's a broader policy and, it's just, I wish we were part of this, if this was coming from us, and we have to say, go get them. That we knew a little bit more than what, like, I hadn't seen the presentation. I saw this tonight, heard rumors that something was being discussed about this. But this is a big deal. We should definitely look into this,
I'm not saying we
but
should.
yeah.
Well, ultimately, the town people will be deciding this. So, I mean, I understand what you're saying too, but, I mean, I'm talking on both sides of my face right now, but, if our job is to look at the language to make sure that it's addressed appropriately and we look at the presentation that was put forward, and all of the concerns are addressed, then, the question is it our job at that point to, regardless, put it in front of the townspeople for a decision?
And
I think it is.
I mean,
And I think,
again, I'm talking on both sides of my face right now, because I can have my opinion on this. But it's at the end of the day, it should be put in front of the townspeople, and our job is just to make sure that everything's been addressed, so if it does go through, it's going through appropriately. Then is it our responsibility to see that that happens, so a vote can take place by the townspeople?
and I think to your point, Brian, your concern is just if the planning board's the petitioner, it would be nice to have more time to.
Yeah,
look
to
into it.
understand the implications of all this, and I'm sure the verbiage is fine. The bigger question is does the town want this? And does the town want this in these spots? And regardless, I guess we can vote. I don't think there's a way we can stop this from getting to the town. And the best we can do is recommend or not recommend, so that's fine. It's just, I'm surprised that this is coming at us now for something that's gonna happen quickly. And we've hadn't, at least I hadn't, had the opportunity to really think about this in a bigger picture of how this fits in with what Liz was saying, but also fits in within the town and all of that stuff. So I'm sure the language is fine. I am fully confident that
One of the last things I would like to say is, Nick, you were at the presentation?
I was.
I was, you were, it was well presented. They did a great job, and they addressed the questions of the select board, the police chief, the fire department, and the board of health. My impression was these people are very professional in their approach. They see an opportunity, obviously for them, for a business opportunity. But it's a new industry, and as Liz said, if we try to investigate it more and hold on, this opportunity may not be here. It looks like this piece of property may be close to, if not, the perfect opportunity in town to take advantage of this. Where it's situated next to Medway, next to the power plant. I mean, they view this as an ideal site for it. I'm not saying it's ideal for Bellingham, but the tenor of the conversation at that meeting last month was that the town supported this based on the selectmen and the fire department's input.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, because of the host community agreement, I need to double check, Brian, but the select board might even be the sponsor. I don't know, but I'll get that answer on Tuesday and, you know, obviously it's a bit, you are correct. It's a big deal. I think it could be my personal opinion is, I think it could be a huge benefit to the town, especially financially, based on that presentation that was discussed. But, you know, I can understand completely if you want to look at it more and let me look at options and I'll have more.
Yeah,
to
and
discuss.
my uninformed opinion
Yeah.
is I know that there's been tremendous fights in other communities over these things. A lot of communities have said no. And it just makes me say, okay, this is a big deal.
Yep.
And we gotta make sure, at least I understand before I vote on it.
Yeah,
You know,
I get that.
And that was addressed in the presentation. They did say the technology over the past 10 years has changed dramatically. These battery storage facilities are even smaller. They're self-contained. They have their own fire suppression system. And the chief is familiar with it. They've got remediation from them to deal with any potential exposure they have and education. So this has been vetted by the fire department for probably 3 or 4 months at a minimum.
So we have not voted on a time for the next meeting.
We need to,
Would this board be available at 6 p.m. rather than 6:30?
Tuesday.
No, I'm not, because I don't get out of my store till 6. It takes me a half hour.
We can't do Wednesday. I think you're busy.
I'm tough on Wednesday too.
Cause we're just gonna do the MBTA, right?
No, I think we should discuss both.
Yeah, I might be able to have more information for the battery storage too.
Are we gonna vote on Tuesday for the battery storage?
We, if I have more like, for example, if the select board is the sponsor, I think that would probably be one item that will make you feel probably more comfortable.
Yeah, I suppose I can,
Yeah,
I just wish I knew more about this, and this is I just don't know enough about it.
complete oversight on my end, I apologize.
No, I don't think
So-
it's an oversight, I just know that this issue has been a big deal in a lot of other communities.
Yeah.
And,
No, I get it, definitely.
And I
Yeah,
addressed,
I know, but they're selling
I know, I
their
understand
point of
it.
view, so I get that, so.
but we're also in a situation where the town is looking at the opportunity budget-wise to control their future budgets.
Yeah.
And this gives us a substantial opportunity to do that. In lieu of other items that are not available to the town of Bellingham at this point in time, based on our building.
Right, right, and I know that the power companies are gonna come offline in the next couple of years, and that's $5 million or whatever, you know,
Correct.
that's gonna present a problem, but the bigger question, I think, for all of us that live here is, are we trading one, I mean, I don't think to do it over again, people would want power plants in town. But I could be wrong, but are we just trading one for the other? It's a bigger policy issue. The zoning, I'm sure, is fine. It's the bigger philosophical questions that are, you know, presented to the town. Do we want this in the town?
But I think that's up to the townspeople to decide.
Ultimately, yep.
One of the things that you mentioned, the power plants on, so the power choice gives not only the town, but gives individuals the ability to save money on their bills. And power choice right now is selling power at between 13 and 14 cents a kilowatt, where National Grid's somewhere in the 16s. So it's certainly beneficial to residents if they choose in. Haven't heard anything about this project.
I did ask the question, if it was going to benefit the residents of the town, and they didn't say it would, they didn't say it wouldn't. Because to me, something like that, I would at least want to see, the residents benefit just beyond the benefit financially for the town to have it, work down to the residents, but, the way I guess the power supply is being distributed, they don't have a say in that. So, the power companies will benefit by it, but whether the power companies pass that to the residents, don't know.
if I recall, Aiden, who was there, one of the presenters, I think he mentioned too that a large majority of power from Massachusetts is imported. It's not actually, we don't export energy, we import it from other areas.
Which increases the cost.
Correct.
Some
Dramatic.
nuclear plant on the Cape went down.
Probably.
Yeah.
So there's a significant amount of energy that's imported to Massachusetts, which is why these battery storage facilities, which are popping up through the Commonwealth, I think he said that there were 5 that were coming online within the next 3 years, and Bellingham was selected as one to be part of the Medway project. But anyway, that's where he said that the benefit would come into play for the residents, where since you're not importing as much, that's where you would see a decrease for your.
Of our cost of energy.
Of course, that's
In
a
theory, that's,
in-
that's.
in theory,
Yes.
that's up to our
Well,
suppliers.
I also think the larger discussion is about the fact that the power grid in general, not just like Massachusetts or what we use. If you're thinking about the United States, it's quickly running out of capacity because of EVs, data centers, advanced manufacturing facilities that all.
Artificial intelligence.
AI, quantum computing, all of these things need excessive amounts of power. So we work with clients that, you know, run into issues with lacking power and needing more power. So I think it's probably a little bit of that macro discussion about how does the Commonwealth remain competitive when you have high costs of power and we're competing against West Virginia, where you can get very low costs of power and there's lots of land and it's easier to build and all of those things. I'm not saying that we as a community have to be thinking about that, but at a very, very high level, the limitations of the power grid is something that is very concerning when we're trying to onshore all of this new production, everyone's getting EV batteries, so on and so forth.
And to pick up on that, you've heard people talk about our limited water resources in Bellingham. That's an impact of future growth. With the limited ability to pump water. This does not impact that at all.
Yeah. This conversation has spiraled into.
I know.
Which is good. I'm glad that this is.
No, but people are probably gonna ask those questions. I mean, I think it's a project that
No, I
it's
agree.
not necessarily gonna trickle down to someone's bill, but it is something that we as a region need to be thinking about in terms of our competitiveness in the business community, because those are the types of uses that are growing very rapidly and they need power and they need lots of power. So, you know, again, I think that's, I guess, more philosophical part of the discussion. You know, do we want to be a part of this, part of the movement? Or do we want to roll this into the larger rezoning discussion? How do we tackle new types of uses if we don't already have regulation? What does that look like? So,
I think this is the first step.
but yes, so next week, there'll be a meeting about sending MBTA off.
We need to make a motion
Yes,
for the meeting.
yeah, to hold the meeting.
Hold the meeting next Tuesday at 6:30.
As long as it's, I have something at 7, so I can do 6:30, but I need to know that it's a 20-minute meeting. So if that's possible.
Hold on. What other options do we have?
We discussed Friday, Friday's not the best.
Can't do Friday.
I don't do Fridays, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
I know.
Now. Um,
How about on Saturday? Hosting a big birthday party. It's not mine.
so Wednesday is a no-go for Brian and Phil, correct?
Yeah.
And Monday or Tuesday could only be done after 6:30.
6:30.
I can't do Monday.
And you can't do Monday.
I have to somewhere at 7.
Yeah, I know, your social calendar is unbelievable.
It's not social. I can.
And Bill, you can't do Thursday?
Well, not to, not to, is anybody off, but is weekend available?
And we could, if you wanted to, but
I mean, if we can't get the week,
Technically, can we post it in time?
well, it wouldn't be this weekend, it would most, it's just gotta be before October 7th. When you have the answer.
Well, can I just throw this idea out? Pick up on what you said. The town often has meetings at 10 o'clock on Saturday mornings. Not often, but they do have. I'm willing to give up Saturday morning.
So. The MBTA is a drop dead must.
So we have to do that.
Now. The solar energy storage, that's a bone of contention, which I understand. Let me get more information. I will limit that conversation very, very quickly. I don't want this to be more than a 20-minute discussion anyway for both of these, because MBTA is pretty straightforward. This one I can get more information on. And I can understand the concern for sending this to the November town meeting. Let me get just some more information. And we do have time, because if worse comes to worse, if we have to put it on the Springtown meeting, that is an option as well. We don't want to do that, but you know, obviously, if the planning board is the one that would have to be the person that sponsors this, and the planning board is a little uncomfortable with some of the aspects and wants a little bit more direction, that can be done. The other thing too is I'm trying to get MBTA on and give us some buffer before the town meeting. I can have this on a different time frame as our MBTA one, where we might have to do a hearing for the battery storage potentially for the November town meeting. But let me figure all of that out.
So I would like to go back.
Tuesday,
to make a
6:30
motion
meeting.
that two agenda item on next Tuesday at 6:30.
Yeah, I think he just said one agenda item.
No, he said we try to have two.
Yeah, I'll get the update on the battery storage thing, but I'm not saying that there has to be a vote on that at all.
As long as there's no vote on it, I'm fine with having, that's fine. Because I had 20 minutes. and
Yeah, I
That's
get
that's a bigger discussion, I think. So,
Okay.
if that's the expectation, I don't imagine the MBTA will be much to discuss. We've talked about it to death.
No, and that's why I think 20 minutes. We've been talking about this right now for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Look how much we've talked about. So,
Yeah, as long as there's no expectation, we're gonna vote on the energy resource overlay. Fine.
This is October 1st, Tuesday. At 6:30. Need a motion?
You need, I need a motion. Motion will fall for a second for a meeting on October 1st. Call for the vote.
Nick,
Bill, aye.
Bill,
Motion passes unanimously. Brian, without any discussion, we have a motion to adjourn.
So
oh, okay, never mind.
Excuse me, can we go back September 12th minutes?
I think you already approved those, right?
Okay,
There was one other item, I didn't expect this to go this long, but I would like to bring it up about the filing deadline for materials. I know we've discussed this at meetings, and there's been quite a bit of discussion about this, whether, you know, when items get submitted, the deadline is the Wednesday before the meeting at 11 a.m. Like, for example, we have this project for 0 Maple Street that was submitted 2 days ago for the resubmission. For most towns that I've done work in, usually there's the deadline for the meeting, and that deadline is held if the planning board or the board has to make some type of action on the item. So it gives you plenty of time to review the material. I've had situations in most towns where if I submitted material after the deadline, whether it's the day before, even the day of the meeting, it's just to give the board an update on the material. I know, like Phil, we've had discussions about it, you know, do we meet that deadline? And there's no discussion, even if the board isn't making an action on it besides continuing the hearing. I wanted to bring this up because I just want to know how the board feels, because if I have to tell applicants specifically, you've submitted after the deadline, I don't want you to be at the meeting, I want you to continue, or at my discretion, if it's something that I know the board isn't going to operate on, but if it's something that we haven't heard in a while and we should get updated on, we have new material, would the board prefer to hear it and see that material? If you're picking up what I'm putting down.
possible compromise. That the trigger would be if action is required by the board.
Well, yeah, that's,
I mean, I think that would be based on the data that's presented. If action is not required of the board, it can be presented. If action is required by the board, will have to be continued.
And that's how most towns do it.
I don't think we do that right now. But I think
No,
we
well,
sort of
it's
follow.
very, I think it's very lax, it's kind of. Like, I know there are quite a few times when I was the associate member, there was new material that was presented that. Like, sometimes it might not have ended up in our Dropbox and it was presented, or it was received previous to the deadline, so. That's why I just want to know from the board, what do you want me to do? So I hear
You understand?
Bill's,
I think my,
I hear your
Proposal.
opinion, anyone else on?
I guess I have a hard time with not getting the material ahead of time. And I say that because if we need to ask questions and we need to evaluate it, we need to consider, you know, how we could affect different residents or other people in town, or even, you know, look at go find a bylaw or something like that, or do any research at all. You know, presenting it, you know, is, to me, is kind of tough. Because it doesn't give us the ability to think about it ahead of time. It's, here it is, it's like, and if it's any type of major project. And all of a sudden they come in and go boom. Even if we're not making a decision that night, it's like. Well, we talked about traffic. Okay, or we talked about the design, or if it's something that's just an add-on type of thing, that might be different.
I think if they just give us an overview of what they want to do, I think that's fine. I think tonight was an example of they gave us an overview. We heard from them, we heard from the public, we dealt with an action plan, and we decided to move forward. Technically, by our rules, we could have said we don't want to hear you.
Well, they presented them, we didn't really talk about the peer review, because that's what came in just recently. But that material that they presented that was submitted, I think, back in August,
Okay,
so. But they hadn't presented it yet.
And we said, Dick, in August, you just presented it, you can't present it tonight, right? But why didn't we didn't see it in August, or because,
So in August, similar situation, I believe they submitted it after the Wednesday deadline. So we told them, but here's the thing, would it have been helpful to have this conversation back in August where, like, they presented the material as an update and then the neighbors were here? Do you want to do that? Because the one thing, this is what I'm trying to get away from, because I found it frustrating when I was on the board. When we were submitted, when an application was submitted, we ended up getting an initial review on the overarching first submission. And then it was continued for 6 months because the applicant and the peer reviewer were going through different renditions. And then all of a sudden, 6 months later, there's a whole new redesign plan. We heard about the initial design 6 months ago. Things have changed. There's been back and forth with the peer reviewer, and now there's a clean peer review letter, and now the board's expected to make a decision on something, or we're at like the 11th hour and we're not even up to speed. So that's why I would like to keep the discussion going and not continue these things. And if it's just an update to keep everybody informed, I just feel like it's beneficial to the board and to the public if there's concerned neighbors. That was the whole reason why I wanted to have this discussion tonight, to figure out.
So. Okay, I'm sorry. No,
No,
go
I was
ahead.
gonna say, so if something gets submitted after the deadline, as Bill said, if there's no action, right? Then what harm is it to hear, get some information
Yeah,
on that upcoming meeting, because there's no action taken. If anything else, if nothing else, we'll have some additional information before the next meeting. I mean, is that logical, or am I missing something?
no, I think that's fair. That's what Bill was saying.
Yeah, I agree. I think a reflexive application of a rule doesn't serve anyone if we're reasonable and we're not having a substantive conversation, but whatever they're gonna talk about, I would completely feel comfortable leaving it in your discretion to whether or not that rule should, apply.
Mhm.
You know, I think that's reasonable.
Generally agree. One thing I don't love is when we have a room full of residents. They're hearing something for the first time and we're also hearing that same thing for the first time, whether it's, a brand new iteration on an easel that we've never seen.
Mhm.
And the entire room's learning about it for the first time. That I don't like.
And the room is packed and you get a new iteration of
Yeah,
the
exactly.
plan.
But is it better than
I don't know.
telling a room full of people, oh, they've continued, come back in 6 weeks?
Well, that's a waste
I
of,
don't know.
But even then, let's say there's a brand new resubmittal that you've received in your Dropbox. And it's gonna be discussed, like, I know from my perspective, I don't usually have the full picture until the applicant has actually described what they've done. Especially because I know you guys have full-time jobs. It's very difficult to go through, in some cases, 30-page plan sets in great detail. So that's where it's helpful. I understand where you're coming from, because there's been some situations where, yeah, you're like,
Yeah.
okay, this is new. But at some point, you gotta peel off the Band-Aid and get the information at some point, whether you've had a chance to look at it or not. The discussion is there, the material has been submitted and it needs to be presented.
I think you know what we need and the timing of these things, and you apply the rule as you think it should be, and I think it'll be fine.
As I spring a zoning.
Other than a major zoning bylaw change 3 days before.
Yeah,
Jerk.
sorry, Brian. I'll freshen up the resume this weekend.
Fine tune what I said. The only action that we would require may be a continuance.
Yeah, I mean,
That's the only, but nothing, no substantial vote,
And a push out of the.
decision deadline. But that would be it. No vote will be taken.
yeah, and that's completely fair. I would never have somebody present material the day of or submit something that wasn't in your Dropboxes and expect you guys to, do any action on it. Besides major zone changes.
Major zone change.
Anything else, sir?
That's it. All right,
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Call for the,
Nick, I.
Friday.
go on.
Bill,
Good night, Bellingham.
yay.